Okay. All right, folks. We're back. Kevin's going to go through a reel flush. This is a brand new reel. He's going to show us what he does just for a flush. So get it ready for you to start using. Kevin, there you go.
Well, this is going to be the same technique you would use to maintain your own reel if you're going to do that. And basically we normally start by removing the handle, and you're going to need a good slotted screwdriver that fits that screw there. And place everything in order, and I'll give you some tips here on how to keep track of that order. Now this is a left-handed reel, so it's not righty-tighty, it's lefty-tighty. So you turn it to the right to loosen it. As you can see, your handle now has a shim that was right in there. Keep placing those parts in order. And then see how this is bowed that way. That's the way that's going to go back on. And those are the things you need to keep track of, just to do basic maintenance, is which way were things facing. And a good thing to do is have a notebook, describe it, have your cell phone, shoot a picture, whatever you need to do to remember little things like that.
Yeah, I can't read my own handwriting, so I'm thinking the picture's going to work for me.
I take a lot of pictures of reels and their parts laying out, and always try and tilt it the direction that you're taking something off so it's not going to fall. Check, make sure there's nothing inside there. And now you'll see the drag star clicker facing up, the actual drag compression spring washers, and one faces one way, one faces the other, and there's a universal rule on those that they go together cupped like praying hands. So if you get confused, they're going to go, the bottom one is going to go down, the top one is going to go the other way. And then we take off our tension knob.
You might want to explain that issue that I've caused on mine with tightening it too much.
Well, we'll get into that a little bit more
Okay.
When we get to the other one, but the way that you set a reel that used to be described as setting the tension to where you could click, let's get that back on, depress the thumb bar and then set it tight enough that your lure would slowly fall and then stop. That was great for reels from the 60s and 70s that had very simple braking systems. With advanced dual braking system reels, you should actually be setting that freer just to the point that you don't have any side play in the spool. Right now I've got side play in that spool. If you set this just to the point that that stops, then it's free to spin a lot easier. I have a lot of people contacting me wanting to know about upgraded bearings or what can I do to get greater distance. The single easiest thing you can do to get greater distance is set your tension cap looser, just to the point that there's no side flop, and then use your brakes. Most people are trying to not use their brakes.
Yeah.
They're saying, oh, I only use 1 tab or 2 tabs. Use your brakes and set your tension to where the spool is freer, and you'll actually get an instant upgrade in castability. If you set it too tight to keep from getting backlashes, you'll actually drill divots in the tension discs that are inside this cap and one in the other side. And the spool shaft spins against that. And if you run it too tight and you've literally drilled a hole into that, your castability goes way down, and you slowly have to tighten the tension knob tighter and tighter and tighter until you, at that point, you've got to replace parts because it's just not working very good anymore. But if that's a little bit dirty, just wipe it off with Q-tip or whatever, and you're just going to have a little bit of oil on there when we put it back together. Now, there's a little knob on the bottom of this reel. Every reel's got different ways that the side cover opens. Some of them are just twists. Some of them have a shaft through that you have to pull out or loosen.
Yeah.
It should be described in your manual, but this one just has a push lever and then twists down. At that point, you can see the spool comes out easily like that. And here's the adjustment for your internal brakes. 0, you're not using the internal brakes at all. 6, all 6 of them are free to swing out under centrifugal force and rub on the inside of this brake ring. And that's exactly what I'm describing. Set them to 6, set your tension very loose, and then see how that casts for you. If you can literally cast like that without even using your thumb on the spool at all, then set this to 5 and see how that works. When you get to the point that you've definitely got to use your thumb, go back up 1, and it's just going to work really good for you at that setting.
Nice.
Now, there's a bearing on here, and we've got to get to this bearing to do our flush service, which is going to require a special tool. If you don't have that special tool, and you're doing your own, something like a can of brake clean, and you should do this outside or a well ventilated area, you're just going to, and you should have goggles on, which I don't, but you're going to spray some through that, and then use some air to dry it. Check that it's spinning good. And then you could add just 1 drop of oil to it and a little on the outside. That's not ideal, but if you're doing it yourself and that's all you can do, then that's still better than what it had from the factory. If you've got the tool that removes that, then we can get it completely off. And that just one direction, that screws and pushes the pin over, turn it around, and it pushes the pin on out of there. Now your pin is right there, and here's your bearing. So we're going to take a few more things apart, and here's the other spool bearing, and it's held in place by a pentagon-shaped wire clip. You can use a pick, you can use a paper clip, anything that you can get in there. I suggest actually doing this while holding this inside a large clear plastic bag, but if not, and now if I lose this, I've got plenty of replacements here. Make sure that your thumb is holding tightly on one side so that it can't fly out. Then click in, lift one side out, and then pull that clip out. If you don't do that right, it's going to fly across the room and disappear, which is why you should probably do it while you're holding it in a plastic bag. Then this pick has a little tip bit on it. You can do the same with a paper clip. A pair of pliers, just bend it over just like that, stick it in the middle, and hook that bearing and pull it out. And here is your other tension disc inside there, which it can be a little tricky to get to sometimes. It's pretty tight. There, get it lifted up and out. And this new one's in good shape. If you're setting that tension cap tight and use this reel, within a year, there's going to be a divot drilled into that. And I've gotten them where it's literally a hole.
Through it?
It's drilled it all the way through, and we'll start putting another divot on the inside of that casing. And they just didn't know why the reel was getting tighter and tighter, and they're having to tighten it more and more. But that's all from setting your tension tighter than you should set it, and using less brakes than you should be using. Now, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to remove the side cover by taking the screws they can see, and then they'll think, well, it's not coming off, I'll pry it off, and they're really going to make a big mistake if you do that, because there's always another screw somewhere. One right here. A lot of reels, there'll be one that goes through this front area somewhere. You need to take this screw out. And then lay them out to where you can remember where they go, describe them, take a picture. That one is a little bit bigger than these three that came out of there. See, the ones from the actual side cover are a little smaller, and they may be different lengths. If they are, you need to keep track of where those were. And again, a notepad, camera.
Yeah, those are different.
The front one was a little shorter.
Yep.
These two back ones are going to be the same.
Nope.
Actually, the front one and the bottom are the slightly shorter ones, and this top one, same size screw, but just a little longer. And if you mix them up, this one would probably stop before it was tight. This one would actually come through. If you used the long one, you'd see it sticking through there a little bit. And when you open that up, parts are likely to fall out, like these two springs here. These are the yoke springs. They go just like that. And if they fall out, don't worry about it. They're going to go right back like that. No big deal. This bearing was the one you saw from right there. It's the top crankshaft bearing. This is your anti-reverse clutch. Now, if you're taking it apart this far, here's how it works. It is on the crankshaft and it's keyed to it. It can't turn independent of the crankshaft. So it's turning in here, and this bearing clutch, as some would call it, is a one-way clutch. That turns that way, but it won't turn this way. So when you go back together, it's easy to put that in backwards, especially if you let it fall out. There is a little bit of a difference that you can tell, a little bit more bevel on that side, but the handle turns like that. So this has to turn like that inside this. So you can see I can turn it that way, so that tells me that that's the way it goes, which would mean it would come up from here. So on this left-handed version, the one with a little bit more bevel is the direction that it would go in, and it would be exactly the opposite. They're going to use the same part in a right-handed reel. And in a right-handed reel, it would be the other way. Now, here is one thing that's very good about this reel is a multi-drag stack. And you can see, here's the top plate. I like to lay these in order. Here's the first carbon fiber drag washer. Now that's something you don't normally see at this price range of a reel. There's $200+ reels that still don't have carbon fiber drag washers in them. They are the best. Then you're going to have a drag plate that's got teeth are little pegs on it. Then this one here is a little bit different sized. So keep track of which one was where. Then this one is the round with the square hole. Then another carbon fiber drag washer. These two are the same size. So the two lower ones are the same size. It's the top one that's a little bit bigger. And that's your order of them right there. In case you get confused, you're doing your own, you can just look at this video and there's the order right there. Main gear, the first drag washer, this plate, and that drag washer, then the one with the teeth. Just like that. That's how it goes back together. And now under the main gear is one more carbon fiber drag washer and the trip gear. This gear looks like the teeth of a saw, and it is what engages the reel when you push down on the thumb bar and turn the handle. See how that clicks in there, and then when you turn the handle, it's going to push on that lever and rotate everything back up. So when you put this together, again, this is going to be the same part for a left or a right-handed reel. They don't make a different one, so you can't really tell a difference. One side's a little bit rounder, but whether it's left or whether it's right, if you put it on wrong, like I just did, then it's going to skip past there like that because it's facing the wrong direction. So like the teeth of a saw, you want to make sure that it is facing towards that trip lever when you put it back together, and that this is what it's going to do when you turn it. So if you mess that up and you put your reel back together and push the thumb bar down and then you go to crank it and it just goes click, 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 click like that, you can bet you put that part in backwards. Very easy. Here's the pinion gear that sits in this yoke. The yoke goes on these yoke posts. That's what actually engages the spool. The drive gear on your drive shaft turns the pinion gear. The pinion gear has these slots here. It's through there, and it's actually going to engage that pin we took out. That's what turns the spool. Got this little yoke here that goes with it. That right there is as far as most people would ever need to take a reel apart to do some basic maintenance. Q-tips, you can wipe up any dirty grease. If it's just a little bit, you can wipe it off with that. You can use a brush and then just put a little new grease on it. Any reel grease is probably fine. I prefer Super Lube multi-purpose synthetic grease. This is good for salt water, it's good for fresh water, it's a synthetic grease. It's actually probably the most widely used by independent reel service centers, and you can get this at most hardware stores, a little tube of it.
Okay.
It's not that expensive, but it's a very good synthetic grease. Now, if you need to clean that, go a little farther here. We need a small Phillips head to get to this screw. These are tiny little screws, so don't lose them. One on this side. You know the nose cone is going to slide off. And now you can take the pawl cap off, which, good thing to notice, a lot of people think this is an adjustment. This is not an adjustment. It should never be tighter than just snug. Take that off. Sometimes there's going to be some little shims in there. This one doesn't have it. You just never know from one reel to another. And often they won't even be shown on the schematic because it's added at the factory if it's needed. It's not there if it wasn't. With a year or two of use, the end of the pawl that actually rides in the tracks of the worm gear, see it there, it's kind of a moon key shaped pawl, that can wear down a little bit. And put that back in there so I can show you what I'm talking about here. That may be sitting a ways down there. It may just feel a little sloppy. And that's when, if you could add, see if I have one up here. Yeah. It's a little bit of shim like that goes in there and would take up that space.
That's what I saw on the floor.
Yeah, there's probably some of them around somewhere.
That's what I saw over there shining up.
But that's what you may see if you open it up. You may see there's probably all kinds of different size ones laying on the floor here and there.
And this one's for now, or this one is.
Yep, there's a few different versions of the little ones that, as you can see, I've got a collection of old parts like that I keep right there so I don't have to run over to the parts cabinet every time I drop something
go.
like that.
We had one of the Gander Mountain, I can't remember what they called it now, one of the high-end reels. It was made by Quantum. That broke off. It was made of ceramic. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of Quantums use ceramic.
Yeah, that was ceramic.
And it's very strong. It won't wear down, but like a coffee kit, it's fragile.
Yep.
So if you let a piece of sand get trapped in there and you turn in the handle and it locks up, but you force it, yeah, it will snap the end right off of that.
Yeah.
If it's the metal one and you force it, when that happens, it's going to jump out, or it's going to tear a chip off of one of the end of the teeth. So the ceramic has its benefits, the metal has its benefits. Keep in mind, if you're doing anything with a reel and it doesn't want to do something, something's wrong. Don't force it.
Yeah, you're gonna break it.
You know, if you've got a piece of grit trapped in there and you force it, you're going to break something. Whereas maybe you could have just used a can of WD-40 or a little pick or something and just clean that out and it won't go back to working just fine. But okay, we'll take a few more things off here. And again, basic maintenance, yearly maintenance, this is as far as most people would have to go unless they've got a lot of crap in there. But even then, this one could just be as simple as like brake clean, spray a little across there, and air gun, blow it off, wipe it off, Q-tip, get it dry, and then put a little oil on it instead of grease. Just a little light, a few drops of oil on there is all it needs. Roll it around, get it distributed, and put that back together. If any of this was dirty, wipe the dirty grease up. And I put a little grease in a little cheap syringe like that, and literally I can just force a little of it under some areas like that. A little brush it down in there, and for most basic maintenance, we'd be ready to go back together.